What happened in qualifying
for the Singapore Grand Prix?
Now, before we dive into everything, it is 1 month today until we go and do our first Delusion Tour show over in North America, of course, heading to Canada as well. So if you want to get your tickets, you better get them soon. 4th of November is Seattle, 5th of November is San Francisco, 10th of November is Denver, 11th of November is Dallas, 13th of November is Toronto, 14th is Chicago, and 16th is Brooklyn in New York City. We'd love to see you there. There will be a link in the episode description as well as the YouTube top comment, and not top comment, top description, top comment. I'm gonna chuck it everywhere. But it's a great show. We do a lot of different things. We have a lot of fun with the audience. There's prizes to be won, a lot of audience participation, as well as bringing some of the podcast sauce as well, Tommy. And to be honest with you, look, if you compare a podcast episode to how we are during a live show, it's rather different, isn't it? It's a little bit more unhinged.
Yeah, we get good chat, but also chaos as well, which is always good.
And as well, it's sort of shaped by the audience, having like controversial opinions and stuff like that. We don't know which way the whole show is going to go because it depends what you say down the microphone. This video is sponsored by Car Vertical. If you're ever needing a used car, this tool is a lifesaver. So I ran this BMW X5 through it, and wow, it showed up as a total insurance write-off with nearly 40,000 euros of structural repairs on record. The photos even showed the crash damage. The mileage checked out fine, theft clear, but without this report you'd have no idea about the accident history. And that's the point. Sellers don't always tell the full story. So that's where Car Vertical comes in. They pull data from hundreds of sources so that you don't get burned. And if it comes back with no findings, you get credit back. So if you want peace of mind when buying a car, use our code P1 for 20% off. There'll be a link in the description and pinned comment. Every car hides a story. Uncover it with Car Vertical. Right, let's head into, first and foremost, Q1, where the bottom 5 drivers were Bortoleto, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon, and Gasly. The main notable thing in terms of an incident, I suppose, was Gasly, of course, having a car issue at the end of the session where his steering wheel got heavy, everything just broke. And I just got to spare a thought for a second for Pierre Gasly. He must be having such a torrid time in that Alpine. Like, he's committed to them, which I think is a fair enough decision for a driver like Gasly wanting to be a number one driver at a team that is Alpine, it's Renault. They are not a small, out the back of a shed type team. And it is an absolutely diabolical season for Alpine. And it just continues. The woes continue for Gasly.
Yeah, at the start of the season, Alpine didn't feel too bad, and it maybe felt like they just weren't delivering the points now, but it very firmly feels like they are just rock bottom, and it is just a case for Gasly and whoever their teammate, whoever's going to be in that Alpine next year, is just kind of riding that storm until we get to 2026, and then hopefully with Mercedes power and new regulations, they'll be a lot better. But for the moment, Alpine are just absolutely woeful.
Yeah, it's very much a tools down. Just see what you can do, drive around this year, have a bit of fun, and then we'll do it properly next year. That's their hope anyway. Next year is our year, is what a lot of teams, including Ferrari, tend to make you think. Question from P1 Patreon member Tony Soprano. Is it really that hard to investigate a yellow flag infringement before the next session starts? Well, this is obviously speaking about Russell, Hulkenberg, and then one other driver, Tsunoda as well. I will say that they did.
Bortoleto,
they cleared Russell. They cleared Russell, didn't they? They definitely did during the session.
They did a few of them during the session. They were kind of like working their way through it during the session. But I guess the argument is, had it been a penalty, they're already through. And obviously one of the big ones here was Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, he ended up 15th anyway. But he gets through, and then other drivers are probably thinking, well, we should find out now, because I want to know if I'm going to be getting through into the next session and might be able to do something. Lance Stroll might have been robbed of a 15th place there.
he tries to say completely and utterly seriously. I will say that, yeah, perhaps, I don't know if they do. Sadly, we don't have a window inside the steward's room, but a priority of the first thing to sort out would be whether Bortoleto was knocked out unfairly by Yuki Tsunoda.
What I don't get here, though, is that if we can, we're watching in the UK on Sky, and if Anthony Davidson's got this footage on the Sky pad and can see that Yuki Tsunoda's lifted or whatever, the stewards must have that footage already if we can all access it and see it.
But they need to have...
but they don't, because they're not speaking to him, are they?
No, but they always love it.
Yeah,
they're
but just make the decision.
Bring your tax bill, your water bill with you as well. We need to analyse your entire background before we make any decisions.
Your whole backstory before we do it.
We need that camera from turn 3, which is only available by a ladder, and you get the SD card out of it. It's just still very archaic, and it's a continuing frustration, isn't it?
Yeah, it should just be a case of they watch the footage back. We see they all lifted off, and then go, okay, you're all clear, done, move on. Or equally, if they hadn't lifted off, speaking of lifting off, before we get into it, I didn't actually put this in the sheet, but Lewis Hamilton obviously, escaped that penalty, which was quite a shock as well. If you've seen the footage, I think a lot of people, including myself, and even I think Lewis Hamilton fans himself, thought that's going to be a slam dunk penalty
from free practice
for speeding
3,
in practice.
Yeah. From free practice 3, it was a bizarre thing to do, I think, on Hamilton's part, to just speed away after Lawson crashed. His pit engineer literally saying, attack the pit entry.
That is wild.
All of this stuff under red flag conditions. Now, obviously, he was cleared because of the fact that he did not go faster than the amount of time he was allowed to take between where the red flag was shown and the safety car line and things like that. Similar to how a VSC works. But at the same time, I'm watching the onboard going, how is that deemed safe? How is that something that under red flag conditions can be allowed, where a driver can be full throttle and attacking the pit entry? Other things to mention, yes, Lance Stroll, your biggest good surprise, Tommy, coming into this one, P17 for Lance. Aston Martin, they were looking so good after free practice 1, which is obviously the most representative session in the daytime around Singapore. But Stroll out, and he was not happy, actually, was he? He was not happy in the slightest. After
he said
Q1,
it always goes bad, but then he also put it in the wall.
Not put it in the wall.
Not put it in the wall.
Bit aggressive, just lightly touched it.
Lightly touched the wall on his way to 17th,
Exactly. And Bortoleto, of course, the whole Tsunoda thing was a bit of a grey cloud, wondering whether or not he'd been unfairly taken out of Q1. But surprising to see him out-qualified by Hülkenberg quite substantially. As soon as I said Hülkenberg points, Bortoleto starts crumbling from the predictions.
I know, and we're getting to Q2, but Hülkenberg's qualified pretty well as well. So, maybe he took it personally when we said that he's not. For all the people that are watching this first for some reason. But it's a disappointing one from Bortoleto. I'm very glad that you didn't allow my prediction from the podcast episode, if you remember that was going to be Bortoleto in the points, and you said it's not crazy, so I changed it.
And took something even worse, so that's fine. Let's head to Q2, where the 5 drivers out were Hülkenberg, Albon, Sainz, Lawson and Tsunoda. Hülkenberg very close to Q3. Very, very close indeed.
For the first
time.
Still
hasn't been in Q3 the entire season, which I find insane. I'm like, how? Nico Hülkenberg was the star of qualifying last year, and he's not managed Q3 once when his teammate has on a couple of times, right?
I feel like that stat has flown under the radar a bit. It's kind of one of those where I've not heard that one. And it is shocking because, of course, he's got all those really good points finishes. He's had a few like massive results, of course, including the podium. But as we said, they were at the time, they were all from really low down the order. Qualifying like 17th and 19th when he got his kind of P5s and his podiums and things. So, crazy.
Podiums plural.
Podiums.
Wow.
Plural.
Spoiler alert. Maybe.
I've seen the future.
What's happening tomorrow? God, can you imagine? Both of the Williams were out in Q2 as well. And then Lawson, obviously, I'm not massively surprised to see him down here after the torrid time he's had in practice, crashing twice. So Lawson 14th, just ahead of his good pal Yuki Tsunoda in 15th. So that will be a battle of the titans. Yuki Tsunoda, of course, struggling once again, but sadly, and I hate to say it, but what's new? Obviously, he did have a bit of a resurgence. It's not. I can't call it a resurgence from Baku because he was still miles off Max Verstappen. But he didn't make notable mistakes, and that's why he scored points and he did a good job. But this circuit is just punishing him.
It is, and it shows that, unfortunately for Yuki, that at least so far, that Azerbaijan Grand Prix result wasn't like the kind of golden moment that's completely changed his whole fortune. He's been really struggling this weekend.
Now, Q3, the top 10, Russell, Verstappen, Piastri, Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar, Behrman and Alonso. What a lineup, what a grid we have for tomorrow. Of course, Russell, 2 phenomenal laps. The first one was quick enough for pole position. He then improved by 0.07 of a second, which again was clear, and he was home and dry. Verstappen, he was a bit upset, wasn't he, at the end of qualifying with not Piastri, as he mentioned in
with
the
not Piastri,
post-quali interviews. Let's go to a question from P1 Patreon member Georgina. Has Russell proved he's a championship-worthy driver with that lap?
I don't necessarily think one lap proves your worth as a championship winning driver. I think George has just done that anyway this season for the most part. He's had a great season. He's been very consistent, but he does need these kind of moments that someone like Max Verstappen has had where he excels, and he did that at Canada, didn't he? Where arguably the only chance that the Mercedes were quick and potentially able to win a race this year, he took that opportunity and won. I already think that George Russell could well win a championship in the future. I think he's all ready to do it if he had the car underneath him personally. Yeah,
for me, nothing's really changed. Like, Russell will win a championship one day. I have no doubt in my mind. If he has a car, and if Mercedes are as clear as everyone thinks they are for next year, and Russell finally gets that contract that he's looking for, I think he's got every trait as a driver to be able to deliver that. But again, it doesn't change with that lap, in my opinion. I think he did a phenomenal job, as I say, and it's a driver's circuit. You can make the time up even if your car is potentially on paper slightly worse. Next question, P1 Patreon member TVR driver. Is this a statement for contract negotiations by George? I think people are blowing this way out of proportion, if I'm being completely honest with you. George will be driving for Mercedes next year. You can clip this up and bring it out when he doesn't. But there's no way in hell Mercedes are not signing George. I think this is very much just a case of George wanting a certain amount of years, Mercedes maybe going, actually, I kind of only want to give you 1 or 2 just in case Max gets a little bit frisky. Yeah. I think that is genuinely all it is. So there's no question marks in my head around where George is going to drive next year. It's just a case of probably George's team and George himself wanting to lock him into a team that may well enter another domination arc.
He's going to be there next year, like you say. No doubt. It is just fine-tuning it. And we know Mercedes likes to give smaller contracts. That's why Lewis Hamilton decided, see ya. Alex Albon, when we did the podcast with him, he said about, as a driver, when you've got a longer contract, it gives you so much more confidence that you can just put aside the thought of potentially losing your seat or even just the negotiations. He's probably sick of talking about it and hearing about it, but he's not gonna lose his seat, is he?
No chance at all. Next question, B Nile 0. Do you think Lando was aware of Max being on a lap? Seemed borderline from Max's POV.
I'd be interested to hear the team radio. I wouldn't be surprised if Lando knew it was Max. I'm not saying he should get a penalty. It's not a penalty. He's not close enough for it to be warranted as an incident that he'll get a penalty, but he's close enough for it to be kind of disturbing the dirty air because we know how difficult these cars are. And Max and Lando, despite, last year, this constant they're really good friends. It has been a little bit more spicy between them, and they're having little digs at each other in press conferences and things. And there was the radio, wasn't there, of your mate, I think he said, GP said. And Max was surprisingly, like, very visibly upset. But as you know, I want to make clear, it's not a penalty in a million years.
I think that Lando, well, he would have known that there's a car coming for sure. That's all the team radio comms is. There's information so that Lando and any other driver doesn't block someone else and gets a penalty. I would be absolutely perplexed if Lando did that on purpose, because the last thing you want to do is create an enemy out of Max Verstappen when you're challenging for your first World Championship. Question from P1 Pitch. Remember, Sophie, 3 rookies in Q3 in a circuit they don't race at in feeder series with tight walls and extreme heat. Is this a rookie class for the ages?
We've got some amazing rookies in Formula One right now. We're seeing that all year. Hadjar has been unbelievable. Bortoletta's had a fantastic season. Kimi Antonelli's had a tough year, of course, but we know what he can do. Antonelli, I think, left some time on the table. This is another weird one where he's actually, on paper, P4 is great, but he's 4/10 off George, so he's kind of flattered a little bit from that. For me, the rookie star of that session was actually Ollie Behrman. I think it was a brilliant performance to be P9 when Esteban Ocon, experienced teammate, is all the way down in 19th.
It's brilliant to see. The fact that, yeah, we have had some mistakes from inexperienced drivers as well in free practice, and I personally think we may well see some again tomorrow, especially as the heat sets in. The fatigue is a very long race, which you can't prepare for. You really can't until you go out there and do it. But Hadjar has been impressive all weekend long. Ollie Behrman, I think that was a performance that came out of a little bit of nowhere, to be honest with you. And to put it into Q3 was brilliant. Obviously, Fernando Alonso as well. That was a great drive from him in his first season. And then Kimi, yeah, I echo your thoughts there. 4th felt like a bit disappointing. I think 3rd was easily on the cards. You saw a replay, I think, of his final lap. He was wrestling the car.
Look how close he was to Piastri as well.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps overdriving it a little bit, 13 thousandths of a second behind Oscar. So for Kimi, a little bit left on the table, but overall, yeah, the rookies are really talented, and I've been an Ollie Behrman stan from day one. I can't wait to see if that ceiling, that glass ceiling, can just be broken through and then he starts winning races. Next question, P1 Pitch. Remember, Blackson, has McLaren truly fallen off? So if we're calling 3rd and 5th fallen off, perhaps, this was the litmus test for me. This was have McLaren at 2 very, well, of course you've got Monza, then you had Baku, now you have this, 2 in the sets in the terms of Monza and Baku together, and now Singapore, very different characteristics of track, and they looked poor this weekend. In terms of overall speed, I think both of the drivers admitted they did not have 4/10 in the pocket to go and steal pole position. I think that they will still be strong in the race. It just is, as we've seen so many times, but I think even more so here at Singapore, the dirty air is going to cause just carnage with the tyres. McLaren, I think they'll look to go as long as they possibly can to try and get some free air. But then again, I think all of these drivers will go as long as possible because the undercut just does not work around tracks like this. I don't think they've fallen off, but they do not have the advantage that we got so used to seeing in the first half of the season. I think Red Bull, it's not a fluke. They have figured out something with this car and they continue to bring upgrades. They brought an upgrade to this weekend, as well as I think Mercedes as well. It's going to be fascinating to see how the next 7 races go, where McLaren, they've wrapped up the constructors, of course they have. But with the drivers, they should, in theory, have the drivers wrapped up as well, so they could tools down. But they can't tools down, because if Max Verstappen wins the title from here, it could be one of the greatest bottles from a team in
one of it's got to be easily the
so
worst.
So this is such a difficult thing for them, because if Max takes a few more points out of them, still very much in the distant championship hunt territory, what do they do for next year? When do they think, right, should we actually try and improve this car a little bit for the last few races? It's not as simple as saying, oh well, have they fallen off? It's what do they do from here if they genuinely think that their car has lost its advantage?
True. Yeah, they should be home and dry and easily, really, of the advantage that they've had this year. And I think their only kind of good fortune, which they're not going to be happy with being nearly 0.4 off pole position, because we just don't see that from McLaren. But lucky for them is that, even though Max was a couple of tenths clear, which will of course worry them and continue that narrative of the fact that they are nervous about him, Max starting P2 with Russell on pole. Had Max been first, I know there's still tomorrow and at a turn one, but it is very kind of, it's good for McLaren that Max is second and Piastri's only third, and there's not other drivers that have kind of slotted into that gap. So yeah, I'm very surprised at McLaren and how far they've kind of fallen off here. Fallen off, as you said at the start, being third and fifth is not massive, but you expect them to be 1-2 at this track and be really, really strong here, like we've seen for most of the year, and they certainly aren't.
They certainly are not. And the final thing to ponder on is, how does Max Verstappen play lap 1 tomorrow? I see it in my mind's eye right now, wearing my Max Verstappen Eras Tour t-shirt. I say mine, it's Ellie's. If Max Verstappen has 1 millimetre of his front right wheel to the back of George Russell's left rear wheel, he is sending it up the inside into turn 1. There is zero doubt in my mind it is his only opportunity, maybe, to beat George tomorrow, in my opinion. I see this being very much a Canada situation where if George keeps the lead, I think he'll be very, very difficult to beat. But Max, we know, even if he sends it to the inside and they both run wide, there is a question to be asked of who was at the apex first.
Yeah.
And we'll go into the details of the rulings again. But yeah, I think Max goes full guns blazing. That's just the way Max is. I don't think he'll ever really drives cautiously. But this is such a huge opportunity. If Max wins, George second, Oscar third, that is 10 points. And that's exactly the 10 points he needs in every single race until the end of the year to win the title by 1 point. Thank you very much.
I watched back.
Actually, no, a little bit more. There's a sprint as well. Sorry.
Yeah, true. I watched back previous starts of Singapore to see, how much delusion I should have, or I should be on the hype train and things like that. And I kind of wish I hadn't, because second does not go well into turn 1. It's very, very difficult. Even though you have the inside line, it's very dirty offline because it's a track that doesn't get used very much. It's a street circuit as well. That line just never gets used. So it's such a... And we saw Max starting second last year. Lando had the inside and he was actually covering off P3. So he's going to have to basically get a really, really good start on George to be able to challenge. Maybe the better bet is after that first section where you have that fast right-hander down the straight and maybe a dive bomb into there. But all being said, Max Verstappen is going to go for it. He's got nothing to lose. And realistically, like three points on Oscar Piastri isn't going to be enough, even though this circuit should be a damage limitation one for Red Bull in theory. He needs to start eroding the lead massively, and 3 points won't be enough. So he needs to win the race if he wants to have this amazing championship comeback, doesn't he?
Right. I cannot wait for tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. We'll be live on Twitch and YouTube. As always, Matt P1 Tommy, to go and find us over on Twitch and on YouTube, of course, P1 with Matt and Tommy. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, and we will see you soon. Remember, get your P1 live show Delusion Tour tickets. We're heading to America and Canada in a month's time, and we will see you tomorrow for the watch-along and for the main podcast. Bye!
Goodbye.